Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's HSMA Los Angeles webinar, Leadership, the Catalyst of Your Legacy. My name is Mitch Woolley. I'm founder and CEO of eMarketing Associates and also president of HSMAI Los Angeles chapter. I want to take a moment to introduce our board who supports us through thick and thin and helps us put together all these great programs. Libby Zarahi, who is our vice president of programs and education, Jennifer Pachedli, who is VP of membership, David Barnett, VP of finance, Craig Tavernier, VP of social media, Lavon Miner, VP of sponsorships, Vaughn Davis, VP of hospitality and innovation, Danielle Shepard, VP of student affairs, and our one and only managing director, Sandra Martinez. I'm going to turn it over right now to Libby Zarahi, who is going to be our moderator today. She's the director of sales and marketing at Hotel Almirano. Libby, would you like to take it away?
Good morning. There's a few housekeeping key takeaways that we like to review at the beginning so we have a smooth presentation. So just a reminder to mute your audio unless you're speaking. It eliminates the background noise as well. And if you have questions while Lilith's speaking, please put them into the chat box. I'm going to moderate that and we'll pause and address them as they come up. There'll also be a small segment at the end that if you have a question that you've written down and still would like to ask it, we certainly welcome that. With regard to, you can go on to the next one. Thank you. Reminder to all of us about HSMAI global resources for our career development. We have the online education university and the certifications are listed here. They're on the website as well, hsmai.org. The Certified Hospitality Revenue Management Executive, Certified Hospitality Digital Marketeer, the Certification in Hospitality Business Acumen, and Certified Revenue Management Analyst. And I want to say that when someone sees those certifications on a resume, they take them very seriously. Very high standards to receive these certifications, but equally it shows the reader or whoever's interviewing you, you are investing in your education and staying up with the evolving world that constantly changes in all these different subject matters. So I really encourage everybody to at least explore it, and you'll find Catherine Tyndall at HSMAI a wonderful resource to assist you. Next, please. We also have a series of web series. This is HSMAI web series, excuse me. This is also offered by Global. The Digital Marketing Essentials, September 6th through October 11th, will take place. For those of us that continue to be pushed into the digital world, but maybe don't deal with it on a regular basis like Craig, it makes you more poised to have informed conversations and be able to make recommendations. This is very important as we continue to approach the budget planning year for 2023. So again, highly suggested. Hotel Digital Sales Essentials will take place September 20th through October 25th. That's identifying changing customer behaviors, creating awareness through social networks. And LinkedIn, for sure, is the social platform that so many people refer to, especially employers. I talked to an employer earlier this week who, this is just very casual conversation, who said they will go by a LinkedIn profile before they will go by a resume. If you look at the clinical way that your profile is chronologically written out and the ability to have other endorsements, etc., it's something that employers really take to heart and very seriously. And then revenue optimization essentials, always looking to develop in that area. I'm sorry, was someone speaking?
No, it's okay. She wasn't on mute.
Sorry. I think the most important recap is this is an excellent prep course if you want to get into certified revenue management certification. And for directors of sales that really are not always in this arena, this would be a great, I refer to it as a Cliff Note version before you go in for the actual certification. Again, this can all be found on the website. Also want to take a minute to recognize the new members. I'm sorry that they're not joining us today. I know a few of them. Jason Abdullah from Pacific Hospitality Group, Sarah Churchill, also from Pacific Hospitality Group, Edward Goff, who used to be my regional revenue director for Hyatt, has joined. I'm going to reach out to him. Sean Europe, Senior Vice President of Revenue Management for Montage, very well-respected brand. And finally, last but not least, Alex Katota, Area Director of Revenue Management for HS Hotels and Resorts. And I just want to recap for the people on the board that are on here. Levon, I don't think you're on mute, although it says you are. This might make a great panel for revenue management when you look at the cross reference of different management groups and different tenures, etc. So that's for another day, but definitely a snapshot on that. And thank you for including that, Mitch.
That's a great idea.
Now on to the fun. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Lilith Chalakian, MBA, DTM, CPC, founder and CEO of New Gen Global Leaders, excuse me. Known as an established executive coach and corporate facilitator, her reputation comes from building people and profits by creating transformational behavior change and lasting results. Her certifications are very founded, certified in human behavior, certified integrity coaching facilitator, certified by John C. Maxwell, which so many of us know, such a well-respected organization individual. It goes on and on. I think to the degree, Lilith, if you get many more, we're going to have to add another slide. But the point of this is, here's an individual that's well-founded in something that we all want to be participative in, and that's leaving a legacy. I personally want to know what love has to do with it. In the key takeaways, the greatest L of leadership is defined through an acronym of L.O.V.E. So with that being said, Lilith, what does love have to do with it?
I love it. Thank you, Libby. We should put that song. There's a song, right? What love has to do with it.
Yeah.
We should put that
Tina
as a
Turner.
theme song. I love it. Oh my God, I never connected it. Thank you for asking that question the way you did. So thank you, first of all, Mitch and Libby and the entire board for having me today, this morning. And I welcome every single one of you. And I'm excited about this time that we have together. I want to give a heads up to all of you. I love to, and I encourage to have a participation. So I will be asking questions. Like Libby said, please put your questions, comments in the chat box. But I really want to encourage you to come off mute, come on camera if you can. Let's have a discussion. And yes, I love big groups and I love small groups, regardless of how many people are there. Always, the person that needs to be here is always here, and that's my attitude. And I would love to hear from you. And I'm going to be asking you questions. If I don't get an answer, I'm notorious for volunteering people. So I'll be asking some questions for you to share. Let me share my screen first. Okay. Can you all see my title page, my screen? Awesome. Thank you so much. So thank you again, Libby, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you. I know designations are always important, right? We keep learning and we keep growing. And that's my attitude in life, that we always need to learn and grow to be able to give what we cannot give what we do not have. So like you said, I'm an executive coach and a corporate facilitator. And my passion, people ask me, what business are you in? And I'm in the business of people development. So today's topic is leadership, the catalyst of your legacy. And a lot of times people cannot understand what is the connection. What is the connection there beyond what does love have to do with it? What is the connection between leadership and legacy? So my first question to you, the participation, is what do you think, what comes to your mind when you think of legacy? What is legacy to you mean? Anybody? I'm going to.
For me, I'm sorry, it's someone that really has made an impression on my development, my work experiences. They are a teacher, someone that inspires me to do what they did. So I try and pick up those kind of behaviors from those kind of people.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. It's about the person, what person did for you, right? How much the person has added value to you. Isn't that?
And by the way, Mitch just added, very well taken, considered a great mentor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Libby, for sharing that. Anybody else? One more person. What does legacy mean to you? Whether it's the same thing that what Libby just shared, or it's something different. Great mentor. I saw Mitch put in the comment box, right? Sandra, did I notice you unmute yourself? Yes.
Yes. Somebody who makes a lasting change.
I love
So
it.
like somebody who does charity work and inspires it to continue when they're not here.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so what you both said today, Libby, Sandra, and Mitch, you put it in the chat, is focus on the people, right? So, but a lot of people, when you think outside, and people, when I ask, number one thought that comes to mind is about the money or the property we leave, right? And this is obviously, I'm hearing from your feedback, that's not your line of thought. So what I invite you to think today of legacy in terms of who you are and who you're becoming. And number two, the seeds of greatness that you're planting in the lives of others that you interact with, right? You, Mitch and Libby, you and Sandra, all of you mentioned about something about mentoring, something that what have you done, how they have developed you as a person. But tonight, this morning, you'll hear me talk about how we do that for others, right? Other people empower and impact and equip us, but we always influence others. And that's where we're going to go as far as the leadership. Now, before we go into my presentation, the first thing I want to do is set intention. And this is a very important step for me for any training or presentation that I do, because I believe it's crucial for what we learn from today. You have invested your 1 hour this morning in being here with this group, listening to the content that I'm presenting, and I want you to take away the most that you can out of it. There is a forgetting curve. It's a study that was done by psychologists in early 19th century that we as humans, our brain, we forget in just one day, our memory retention drops down by 70%. So whatever we hear or whatever we see, just in one day, our memory retention drops by 70%. And in the 7 days, we forget 90% of information we heard or we saw, unless we intentionally practice it. So my goal for you today, when I set the intention, when I ask you, I invite you to set the intention, is to write down the 3 takeaways, at least one, at most 3. I don't want you to write too many things that you want to take away. The takeaway might be a light bulb that comes on when I'm saying something, or is it something specifically that I said, or it's something that validates what you already know and you're doing. So something new, something a light bulb, or something that validates, and you say, you know what, I have been on the right track. I need to do more of this. I need to be more of this person. So I want you to write it down. And the second most important one is 3 action steps. If we don't apply, we don't do anything different, anything to change with that information that we just learned, we lose that. And the action step is actually what creates that behavior change Libby talked about earlier. My passion is creating that behavior change, personally myself first, and then in others as well. So 3 takeaways, 3 action steps, that's maximum, but at least 1. I want you to have 1 of each. So at the end, I'm going to ask you to share with me, to share with each other. And since you're in this chapter all together, you can hold each other accountable. In my coaching business, accountability is number 1. We need to hold each other accountable. Since I'm not going to be back again soon, or maybe sometime later, but I want you to hold each other accountable, number 1. Number 2, when peer-to-peer interaction happens and you share your own takeaways, it brings a light bulb in somebody else's mind, or the action steps. You help each other as well as a team. So 3 takeaways, 3 action steps. Are you ready to go on? I'm gonna ask you at the end to share, so be prepared. Now, let's talk about leader versus manager. We a lot of times we use these titles interchangeably, which is there are places that is rightfully so. There are places that we want to have this distinguishment. So who can tell me what's the difference between leader and manager? What does it mean to you? Manager and leader, what's the difference? Anyone? When you think of a manager, yes, Mitch.
I think a manager is one who just kind of manages the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
More of a kind of a More of a little bit proactive, but more reactive.
Mhm.
Where a leader is the captain of the ship, someone who
Mhm.
steers and guides the organization in a particular direction or guides it toward a common goal, where the manager just kind of manages the day-to-day to make sure they're on that goal, but they're not the leader.
Absolutely. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Mitch. I appreciate that. Very good point. Anybody else? One more idea, one more differentiation
Sure.
that you,
This is Libby. When I think of managing, I'm thinking more of task orientation, of completing tasks. When I think of a leader, I'm thinking of an individual who works with great intention. They get up in the morning, they have great intention on how their day's going to go, who they're going to influence, who they're going to support. Quite frankly, when you're a leader, you're supporting a lot of people, counseling a lot of people. You're going through a discovery process of best practices.
Mhm. Very good. Thank you so much for sharing, both Mitch and Libby. Absolutely right points, right on money here. Libby, I loved how you kind of started that differentiation, and Mitch started that even before that. Leaders are focused on who. Managers are focused on what. A lot of time, and I'm not saying, don't hear what I'm not saying. Leaders are sometimes we're wearing different hats. Sometimes leaders need to do the management tasks. Sometimes managers are leaders. We still need to work with people, right? But this greatest distinguishment is between the leader is about people. Leaders is they focus on people. What do we do? Vision and people. Like Mitch said, they drive the ship, right? They point the direction where we're going. And managers are focused on the processes more, day-to-day activities. What are the tasks that need to be done? And I love how you brought it up also, Mitch, that proactive and reactive. Managers a lot of times tend to be in the role of reactive, taking care of day-to-day things. Leaders are casting a vision. Leaders are proactively directing, setting the direction. So to me, when I define leadership, the greatness of a leader is not in the wealth they have acquired, but in the lives they have enriched. And both of you, that when you're adding your comments, you hinted on that. People. Leaders is about people and the lives we're changing in our lives. My favorite definition by my favorite mentor, John C. Maxwell, of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So when you think about influence nowadays with our social media proliferation and the usage, the influencer took on a little different connotation than what the real meaning of influence here is implied. So we'll talk a little about that shortly. But my mission is to develop self-aware, conscious, mindful, and evolved leaders across all generations that truly value people and add value to people. And don't get me wrong, money are important, profits are important, all of that are important, because we need to be able to sustain our organization, to sustain in the hotel industry, to have the money to even enjoy life. But every time I remember Zig Ziglar, my favorite quote by Zig Ziglar is, he said, don't chase money, chase helping people, and the money will chase you. So my focus is, it's not that it's not important. Where is our focus as a leader is on people, truly valuing people and adding value to people. So let's talk about influence. When we think about influencers in our social media and the leader as an influencer, what influence is, it's not about your power, it's not about the control, and it's certainly not about position. Even though we're going to talk about position and how important that is, it is about where your heart is with your people. Are you serving them and empowering them, or are you using them? And I love how Libby earlier kind of talked about is like what the leader, the people, the legacy that we leave is what we're doing for other people. We'd never stop to think about it, that we're serving other people by how much value we're adding them, even though we are in a leadership position. A lot of people think that when I'm a leader, people need to serve me. But when we're leaders, we're serving others. So that's where the influence definition is. The presentation that I have for you today is broken down into three parts. The first part is, what is leadership? What is influence? who is a leader? And the second portion is, why is leadership so important? Why am I putting so much emphasis on it? And lastly, how do we become better leaders? And that's where what love has to do with it comes into a picture. So let's look into the inside of influence. What is influence? And I'm going to be using the words leadership and influence interchangeably because, like you saw, John Maxwell defined it, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So let's look into the inside of influence. Leadership is influence. We already said that. My influence with others is either positive or negative. Okay, this is a fact. Sometimes we have a negative influence with people, on people, to people, but mostly with. I always love to use that word, with people, because we're not doing something to people. We're interacting and improving and adding value to people, but we're influencing with them. We're leading them. So what does it mean to have a negative influence? What does it mean to have a positive influence? Sometimes it's unintentional. There's times we have no control over. We do not intend to add negative influence, have a negative influence, but it just because the person is not as receptive as to what we're saying or doing. But let's look at the examples of these types of influences. I'm going to go from the worst, from the negative, all the way down to the positive. How do we influence? Force, number one. There is just no choice in the decisions. You're forced to do something. Unfortunately, through our human history, we have enough examples of leaders that led through force, and that's not something that we as humans really want to have that type of influence, right? So force is the worst type of influence. Intimidation, my way or highway. How many of you met somebody in your life that says, my way, highway, I don't care what you think, I don't care what you want, this is the way, and you're out if you don't do it, right? And that's, again, that's not the type of influence we want to have with people. The next, notice that we're getting better and better. Manipulation is still bad. Manipulation is basically saying there's no winner. Somebody else manipulates you for their own good. Obviously, that's not a type of influence we want to have with other people, and we recognize it when we see it. It's so much easier to recognize in others than in ourselves, right? Sometimes. Then we talk about positional influence. Now, you notice we're getting better and better. Positional. I have a position. You have to follow me because I cut your check. I have the position. I manage your benefits and all of that, right? I have the position. As a parent, when my children were little, I've told them when they're 2 and 3 years old, they don't understand the differences between right and wrong or safe or not safe. I'll say, because I told you so. It's like, why do we have to do this? Because I told you so. I'm your mom, right? That's kind of when you think about that, there is a time when positional influence is important, but it's important not to stay there. And it's important to understand that I'm there with an intention, whether it's safety as a parent example that I just brought, or for other purposes. Now, we're getting better. We're getting better. Now we're talking about exchange as a form of influence. This is a win-win. We both win something. Maybe we didn't get what we wanted, but there's a win-win interaction. There's a win-win exchange happening. And now the next one is persuasion. This is a type of influence that we follow people because we want to. The word persuasion actually comes from the Greek word, and it means through sweetness. So because we want to, we like the person, we like what they stand for, right? But this is a persuasion still not at a deeper level. And that's why I have the social media kind of samples here. You follow people because you like what they say. You follow people because you like who they are, or just because they're your friends and family. But the highest level of influence is respect. We follow people because we respect who they are and what they stand for. And I just put some examples of the people that I consider influencers in my life out of respect because of who they are and what they have done. John Maxwell, as you see, he's in the center. He's my favorite mentor. And we have Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King. So all these examples that I have is just to show what I talk about respect. Doesn't have to be somebody as powerful, as popular in our society. Could be somebody, my mentor. I have a partner who I respect and admire for who she is and what she stands for. So when we think about those terms, that's the highest level of influence. And I'm going to be talking about the pinnacle level of leadership. That's where we want to think about the respect. who I am and what I stand for. So when you think about it, why do people respect you? I'm just going to throw out this challenge. When you reflect on people that love and respect you, and you know that you're an influencer in their life, what is it about you? And that will help you recognize this is who you are. Remember, I said earlier, I invite you to think of legacy in terms of who you are and who you are becoming, and validating and doing more of that. So let's go back to insights of influence. So I said we can influence positively or negatively, and we went through the range of positive and negative influences. People of positive influence add value to others. There's no way around it. If you're positively influencing somebody, you're adding value to others. Again, we talked about it earlier. Mitch touched upon it, Libby touched upon it, that we are basically empowering people, doing something, developing people. We're adding value in some way or another. Our influence with others is usually not in all areas. And what I mean here is that we're generally influencers in the area of our talents and strength. There's some areas in our lives that we're not influencers. We can't influence people in those areas because that's not where our strength is. And the next one is, with influence comes responsibility. And like I said, I'm going to be using the terms leadership and influence interchangeably. So when I say influence is a responsibility, leadership is responsibility, and the rent is due every single day. Like Libby said earlier, when we get up in the morning as leaders, what is the intention? Who am I intentionally going out there to impact the lives of, right? You touched upon it so well, Libby, that it's a responsibility that when we get up in the morning, when we set the intention for the day, we're thinking about the responsibilities I have for other people and responsibilities of other people, my people relying on me, whether it's in family or in the professional environment. So we always want to remember that, because this is applicable to any area of our lives. And lastly, our influence can grow. I wouldn't be here with you if I wouldn't believe this. We grow our influence. And that's why I said earlier, when you write out your takeaways, a lot of it might be a validation, but some of it could be a light bulb, or some of it could be, I should be doing more of this, or I already knew I should be doing it, but I'm not doing it, right? So our influence can grow. And that's where my passion is, growing people and profits with integrity, right? So this is basically kind of answering what is influence. What is leadership? I do see something in the chat. Oh, okay. Sorry, Mitch, that was you. Any questions so far before I move on to next portion, which is I'm going to ask you to please come on, unmute yourself. And if you can, come on the video, because we're going to do interactive exercise. Any question before we move into that? Yes, Mitch.
I have a question. So the last box down here says our influence can grow. Are you talking about growing in a specific area? Or are you talking about growing, because the one on the very left bottom, it says is not usually in all areas. Does that grow into different areas, or in just that one area?
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you for asking that, Mitch. It grows. We can grow it in the area that we choose to. Whether we're intentional, you can grow in the areas that are not your talents. But what I always say, where do you want to invest time? Right? Where your talents are, where your influence are was strongest, that's what you want to grow more. Obviously, you can grow the areas that we're not as influential in the area with people. Let me give you like a simple example. I love doing the training, facilitation, coaching, and my background is also technology. So I'm really good in technology world as well. So my kids, but I don't like cooking. Cooking, like, give me some spices and some things, I'll just throw everything together. I don't go through stages. I don't have the patience for that, right? So when my kids, my daughters are older now, when they ask me for a recipe, they know they won't come to me for advice how to cook. That's not the area that I have an influence with them in, but anything have to do with the computers, guess who comes first, who they go first to, right? So that's just a simple example of that's where my area of strength is. And I know I can help, or even sometimes with relationships, when they're having interaction, their relationships at work, at school, they come for advice, they come for mentorship, right? They know who to go to. Now, when that's what I need. Now, if you want to grow your influence in the areas that we're weak, absolutely, we can do that, but that's a choice we need to make. Recognize. Remember, I said earlier, my mission is self-awareness, develops the self-awareness and mindfulness, right? We need to be aware of what we want to change. And my favorite quote by Sheryl Sandberg. She was a CEO of Facebook. She said, we cannot change what we're not aware of, but once we're aware of it, we cannot help but change, right? So to your question, absolutely, you can change any area. You can grow in any area, whichever you choose, right? So thank you for that great question. Anybody else before we move into the service profit chain? That's my favorite activity. Okay, any more questions? We'll come back to it later. So let's talk into why leadership is so important. Why am I talking so much about the leadership? This is a study that was published in Harvard Business Review in early 1990s, and it's a service profit chain. Usually, and basically what it says, the profit margin and market share are crucial, absolutely crucial. But if they are the only concerns and goals, then we're making a big mistakes. In a service economy, customer and frontline workers must be your top priority. That's basically the whole point behind this research. So let's look into this. What do I mean by that? And this is the activity I want you all to come off mute and participate with me. Profitability and growth. Absolutely, it's the key goal for any organization to be in business, to be able to provide the service we want to provide. We need to have profitability and growth. But I'm going to ask you right now to look into these areas, the elements that I have over here, and let's decide what drives profitability and growth directly. Everything drives it, but what is directly driving profitability and growth? And the areas that I have here, they're in this not in order, basically. Internal quality, employee satisfaction, customer loyalty, leadership, employee productivity, external service value that the customer gets, customer satisfaction, and employee loyalty. What do you think directly leads? So we're going to fill up these bars that are empty here. What do you think directly drives profitability and growth? Sandra.
Activity.
I'm sorry?
Activity.
Close to it, productivity, you said, right?
Well, productivity and activity.
Oh, activity. Okay.
Activity.
So now we don't have that option, activity here. We don't have it. Out of this list that we have on the screen, we have an employee productivity, right?
Oh.
Activity is part of it all. It's definitely the umbrella of it all. But what directly drives the profitability and growth? Who pays? Where does the money come from?
Our customers.
Absolutely, right? Customers. Now, what's the difference between satisfied versus loyal customers? What does it mean to you? Difference between satisfied and loyal?
Satisfied to me is nothing really wrong with the interaction. Loyal is everything was off the hook and right, and that's the only place I want to do business with.
Absolutely. Would satisfied customer refer somebody else, or a loyal customer refer somebody else?
I think of a loyal customer as being an extension of my sales.
Absolutely. Would loyal customer come back again, or satisfied customer come back again?
Perhaps both, but I think the loyal customer will fight to get in.
Absolutely, right answer. Both might come, a satisfied customer might come back again for the same product or the same service, right? But you're right, loyal customer is basically like everything, the way you made them feel, right? That's what brings the loyalty. So if we look at it that way, again, don't hear what I'm not saying. Satisfied customers are important, but realize that if we increase by 5% our customer loyalty, this is the research that was done by Harvard Business Review. It boosts our profits somewhere between 25 and 85. Just a 5% increase in customer loyalty boosts our profits by 25 to 85%. So that's a great jump. Yes, Mitch.
I think customer satisfaction leads to customer loyalty.
Absolutely. So then let's go that. So customer loyalty then leads to profitability and growth, and customer satisfaction leads to customer loyalty, right? So you see the way we're going into. So what leads directly into it? We have a satisfied customer, but it doesn't guarantee that they'll come back again or they'll refer somebody else. Okay. So let's go next. What drives the customer satisfaction? What do you think? Why am I satisfied?
Value,
there you go.
Service value.
There you go. Oops. There you go. I got some value. That service that you provided, I got value and I'm satisfied with it, right? Sometimes Libby said, sometimes it's just, it is what it is. This is what I expected. I got what I expected, but it's a satisfied external service value. So what leads to external service value? Now I'm thinking as an employee, I am doing something that provides that external service value to the customer. And that kind of goes back to what Sandra said earlier, right? If I need to take care of the client, I need to, is the room being cleaned in time, right? Productivity, am I doing my tasks on time the right way? Do I go above and beyond, right? Productivity is really important to be able to finish the tasks on time, to do what I need to do, to deliver the product on time. You see what I'm saying? That productivity makes the external service value possible, employee productivity. So what drives the employee productivity? Notice what we have left here.
Satisfaction.
Very close. Satisfied employees, just like satisfied customers and loyal customers. What's the difference? Do you think there's a difference between the two?
Yeah, because you don't get loyalty until you get satisfaction.
Exactly, right?
It's hard doing this backwards.
Yes, we're going backwards. We're doing reverse engineering, basically. Just think of it that way, because I want to take us through this thought process to see why is leadership so important, right? So employee loyalty, the loyal employees, the difference between satisfied and loyal employees, satisfied employees will do the bare minimum. They'll do what needs to be done. They accomplish the task. The loyal employees will go above and beyond. The loyal employees will have the productivity that your organization really needs and your customers really need, right? And then what leads to employee satisfaction? Internal quality. We talk a lot about culture. We talk a lot about organizational values, the quality within the organization, the family, right? This core of a family that we have. What do we stand for as an organization? What are the values? What is the culture that we say we have and we actually live? That's the internal quality. So are people happy when they come to work? Are they feeling that they're part of something great? They're part of a great organization. And what leads into internal quality is leadership. And earlier Libby mentioned that, right? Leaders, or was it Midge? You said that you set the vision, you cast the vision for the organization, and you intentionally think how we're going to do like how am I going to and who am I going to add value to today? So when you look at this chain, profit chain, you notice that everything is, first of all, our customers pay our bills. Our customers, the loyal customers, are the ones that pay our salaries, pay our bills. That's where the money comes from. That's where the profit and growth comes from. So when you look at this chain, it's important to notice that everything starts with leadership. The way the leaders cast the vision, the way the leader treats their people, the way the leaders do empower, impact, elevate their people, it really trickles down to the way employees treat their customers. Because a lot of times in a bigger organization, the leader himself or herself never has a direct interaction with the customer, but the employee is the extension of the leadership. So the reason I wanted to go through this activity is for us to recognize that there's a difference between internal customer and external customer. So as a leader, my priority, my prerogative is to make sure I'm adding value to my internal customer so that it trickles down to the external customer. And when you think about this, we're going to talk about the levels of leadership position. Remember I said earlier that there's a positional influence, positional leadership. So let's look at how John Maxwell defines the 5 levels of leadership. Any questions on this profit chain? Do you see why the leadership is so important through this chain, how everything trickles down, how everything drives the other? Any questions so far?
Fantastic.
Thank you, Libby. Okay, so let's look at the levels, 5 levels of leadership. This is how John Maxwell describes in actually his book, The 5 Levels of Leadership. The level 1 is a position. Remember we said earlier, people follow us because they have to, right? How many of you, when you were younger, or there was a time in your life when somebody said, oh, here's the key, you're the manager, take care of the business, right? You're in charge of this, you're in charge of that. They give you the position. Now you're responsible for that position, right? That's an important level. We cannot, a lot of times, lead people, but we don't require the position to lead people. But a lot of times in the organization, the position is needed to have that level of influence. Now, the blind side of it, we get stuck in that level and we don't develop people. We don't focus on people. We focus on running business. I'm not saying that it's not important, but we don't want to stay in the position level. Once we have the position, then we grow through the steps. The second one is a permission. People follow because they want to. This is a level that they enjoy. This is a kumbaya environment. They come to work, they have fun, they enjoy being with people they're surrounded by. This is a permission. I'm giving you the permission to lead me because I so enjoy this environment. And it's important to remember that's a key. We need to make sure that people enjoy the work they come to, right? How many of us know people? I know more people than I wish, knew more now, not as much now, knew more people that hated going to work. They just didn't want to go to work. They just didn't like the team they had. They didn't like the people they work with. So permission level is important, but what it's lacking is results, because there's a lot of emphasis on people and having fun and listening to each other, but the results are lacking. So the next level, level 3, is production. People follow because of what you have done for the organization. Results, you've produced the results that organization needs, the profits that organization need. And when you think of the production level, though, the blind spot is, if you think of it this way, somebody who would just drive over anyone to achieve their goals, to sell, and will say anything to sell, right? This is when people ride over other people, step over other people to get to the results. This is that's the blind spot, right? We can fall into that trap thinking that only results matter, not the people. And you see how both are unbalanced. The permission and production levels could be unbalanced if we don't intentionally, mindfully think about it and make sure to bring in both elements into the picture. So the production level is important. We need to have results. We need to earn money, right? We need to have a profitability and growth. But just being in that production level by itself, in that production bubble by itself, has blind spots also. The next one is level 4, is people development. People follow because of what you have done for them. That's what we started with earlier today, right? We talked about how mentors and leaders empower and do add value to others. And the last one is the pinnacle. The level 5, the pinnacle. Remember, I talked about respect. People follow because of who you are and what you represent. This is a level, actually, we just earn by being who we are throughout our lives. Earlier, when I said I invite you to think of legacy as who I am and who I am becoming, this is that level. You don't do anything specifically to be at that level, but throughout our lives and our experiences and role modeling and the way we treat people, that's the level 5 pinnacle level that people respect us. So when you think about this leadership, all of this talk about the leadership and why is it important? What is leadership? What is influence? I want to briefly touch upon 2 more things about leadership styles model. This is important because, like we said earlier, leadership and management, 2 important, none of them are unimportant, but it also talks about how we focus, where our focus goes on. There's a people-focused orientation and there's a goal-focused orientation. Some people have low people focus, and it depends on our communication and behavior styles as well. And also it depends on the job we're in. Low people focus and low goal focus. That's not somewhere that as a leader we want to be in. High people focus and low goal focus, we're getting better. Remember, we're in that permission level. We're focusing on people a lot. We're in the permission level, but we're not focusing as much on goals. And then low people focus, a high goal focus is that production level, when we're focusing on results, let's get things done, but we're not focusing as much on people. And lastly, high people focus, high goal focus. So ultimately, this is where we want to constantly balance into. Now, there's some days, there's some times when we need to focus more on goals and results, and there's some days we need to focus more on people. Absolutely, we need to remember that we are constantly, as managers, sometimes we're wearing a leader's hat, sometimes we're wearing manager's hat, but remembering that we want to constantly keep bringing ourselves into this equilibrium that we need to be able to focus on both, but people are because people are the ones that drive our business. So when we think about that, if you think, again, not right or wrong. The only thing I would say the low people focus on, low goal focus, is basically not giving us any results. There's no production, there's nothing happening. But any area other than that we're in, we can be kind of switching back and forth depending on what we need to take care of. And especially nowadays that so many people, there's so much is done with less people. People are wearing so many different hats. That is something that we want to be mindful and aware that I am switching intentionally. Now I need to turn my phone off and I need to listen to my people who are frustrated with something. I need to give that time. And that's what we train through integrity coaching, how to coach our people through their work time, through their challenges they face as well. So the last thing, what does love have to do with this? So we talked about what, who, we all are leaders, where, and why is leadership is so important. But now the key here I really want to always take away for you is how. Okay, we heard all of this. Okay, this sounds so great and beautiful. We want to focus on people. How do I do that? And I call this the greatest L of leadership. Nowadays, there's a lot of emphasis. If you listen to some of the news, if you go to the bookstores, you hear a lot about leadership. There's a lot of talk about leadership, and there's great resources about how to be a better leader. But what I found and John Maxwell is my role model actually in many ways, is it all comes down to love of people. If you look through the history, all the greatest leaders in our history, what do they have in common is their love for people. It's shown through their actions, through their words, through their interactions with other people. Now, think about this, like I said earlier, the definition of leadership. Leadership is who you are, not what you do. Don't get me wrong, actions are important, but it all comes down to who am I as a person and what do I think about people. So, and the way I broke it down into the LOVE acronym, L-O-V-E. So how do we love our people? And one thing I want to say clearly here, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about Valentine's type of love that we every February commercialize type of love. I'm not talking the Hollywood sensual and sexual type of love. And I'm not talking about this beautiful romantic books type of story love that it fills our bookshelves and our digital books reading shelves. But I'm talking about the love that really goes deep down inside of a person's heart that knows that this leader, this person really cares about my well-being. And how do we show that is? By number one, listening to them. Number one is L stands for listen. Listening to your people is the best way to express that they are important to you and you really care for them. You want to listen to what they're saying, what their experiences are, what their opinions are, what their perspectives are. However, nowadays, listening has become the hardest thing that we do because of a lot of distractions. I love technology. My background is technology, like I said, but technology gives us a lot of distractions nowadays, the social media, the TV, all the news and everything. There's so many outward distractions, but there's also internal distractions. My mind is constantly non-stopping, not able to focus on the person, right? So listening is important. It's an activity that we need to train ourselves to learn how to listen to people. Now, besides all the distractions, now there is something that we always have a confusion about. Hearing is a function of our physical ears. So sometimes we think I'm listening to the person, I'm hearing what they're saying, while listening is a function of the heart. What I'm talking about here is listening to what really person feels, what we're listening with intent to understand their feeling, their emotions, and where they're coming from. Doesn't need to be agreeing with, there's no need to agree, disagree, just listen to the person. Every single person on this planet, regardless where they are, every human being wants to be understood, loved, and respected. Those are the three keys that are common to everyone, everywhere. So there is a time for leaders to speak and cast vision, but there's always a time for us to stop and just listen. The second one is observe. And when I talk about observing, I'm talking about this is kind of closely related to listening, and it goes deeper than the words that we hear. In other words, observing is active listening. You're paying close attention to what someone says through their gestures, facial expression, their vocal inflation, their behavior with others, and the way they interact with others. Again, just like listening, there is a misconception about hearing as well. There's a misconception about seeing as well. Seeing is a function of our physical eyes, but observing is a function of our heart. Am I observing somebody's body language to be able to understand deeper and better what they feel and what they say beyond the words that they're saying? So just like hearing and listening, we confuse that, seeing and observing. Now, when we desire to really understand people and we love them and want to observe and listen to them without judgment, criticism, or manipulation, just listening and observing have to do with learning about and knowing people and understanding them. That's all it is. Now, once we are able to learn and listen and observe and understand the person, now we're able to validate and value. Basically, through this step, validate and value, we're saying, I see you, I hear you, you matter. That's all. We don't need to agree. We don't need to disagree. I'm validating. This is the experiences you had. This is the way you think based on those experiences. But validating takes a level of humility, maturity, and care for the human being to acknowledge that their emotions, thoughts, and experiences, values, and beliefs without judging them. We just validate it's there. Now, great leaders do not minimize people's experiences and thoughts and beliefs, but they also don't minimize the people behind them. Great leaders value their people regardless of the difference. So when we are able to validate, it's so much easier to value a person for who they are, right? Now, you said, what does love has to do with it, right? When we love people, again, it has nothing to do with, like I said earlier, with the Valentine's type of love. It's just that deep care in our heart, what we think about the people and how we validate and value them. Once we're able to listen, observe, validate, and value all those steps that we have been able to do and to show and express to the person that I really care for you, to understand you and respect you, that's when I, as a leader, earn the right to add value, to pour into their lives. I'm empowering and encouraging them now. I'm speaking into your life, and that's where the person is open and willing to receive what feedback I have for that person. What can I add value? How can I add value to the person? So before I run out of time, I want to close this with saying that we started with it earlier, saying that we cannot give what we do not have. So as we're growing and learning to love our people and add value to our people, but just understanding and respecting, I want to invite you to remember that we need to start with ourselves. Do I listen to my thoughts? Do I listen to myself? Do I observe my interaction with other people and understand and mindfully recognize what is driving my emotion? Do I have emotional intelligence to recognize that, right? Then am I validating my feelings? Am I valuing myself for who I am? So it's so important to first start with ourselves. And the example I always love to bring is when Jesus said in one of the verses, he says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You notice the implication here is that we need to love ourselves first. We cannot give what we do not have. So when you think about that, listening, observing, validating, and valuing, and then having your friends, mentors, or coaches that can empower and encourage you to go beyond what your comfort zones are, to go beyond what you thought you can do, that's the way we can start. So I invite you to intentionally love yourself, L-O-V-E, listen, observe, validate, and value, empower and encourage yourself so you can give from your outflow and plant the seed of greatness in people that you interact with, because it's important. You matter, everyone matters, and we give who we are, not what we do. Thank you for your attention, and let's take some questions if you have any questions. And more importantly, I want to hear your takeaways and your action steps, at least one, if you can please share with us.
Well, it's Libby again. Sorry.
Yes.
I would love you. Okay, so you recommended that we come up with some action steps or intentions. So the purpose behind what I'm going to tell you is I want you to guide me or counsel me on the best way to frame this.
Perfect.
But when we were talking about the different levels of leadership, I thought, sometimes we just go through the day because we work together for so long, we just take it for granted, take the ball and run with it.
Yep.
And I'd like to identify key people in my life, both family and friends. That would be one level. And then I would put work in another level. So the work would be my coworkers, my boss, could be my boss's boss, who knows? And how do I go about, is there a 2 or 3, 4 item checklist that I could ask myself? In other words, hold the mirror up and say, where do I benchmark with these people? When you're looking for respect. And I think that's probably one of the biggest, I'm just speaking for myself, nobody else. I think that's a big assumption by leaders and managers, that just because they're in that position, they got there because of their productivity and respect. But one false move, and I'll use COVID as an example, can destroy a person's career, can destroy a person's thought process of, oh, I thought we had a better relationship than what we did. And COVID broke a lot of this up. So how do I go about measuring and saying, am I still connected? Am I making a positive impression? What I'm thinking, I would ask myself, what's the last interaction I had with that person? Was it positive? Was it negative? Did I leave them almost with I'm not trying to sound superficial, but almost with a client type mentality of, is there anything more I can do for you? Because typically in leadership roles, they're doing for us.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot of babble, but.
No, it's not. It's absolutely beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. And I want to say this to you. Thank you for, first of all, having the courage to ask this question, because you think you're the only one that goes through this, but it's right now, a lot of people are struggling. How do I recognize? How do I benchmark? How do I make sure that I'm there for people when they need it, how they need it? Now, the thing is, and you also mentioned really good assumptions. A lot of times we make assumptions that I am really adding value to the person, I'm doing this, or they're assuming that they have the position because of their productivity, because of the respect. So a lot falls apart, number one, because we form assumptions. So as a leader, what I'm going to say, without having to add more to what I just discussed, it's important as a leader to be a coach. And ask a lot of questions. So you kind of said family, friends, and work, and then clients, right? We're talking about clients as well. Work related, you were talking, see, when you look at internal client and external, that's what you kind of want to look at, right? Family, friends, and internal and external clients. So every area is different. And I'm going to say this one thing is, please set the expectation. This is not an overnight change, but I love the direction that you're going. It's like, how do I start to change it? Number one, I would always recommend you have key people in your life. You know who they are. You want to assess. Our relationship with every individual is different, based on who we are, based on who they are, based on behavior styles and personality styles and communication styles. So when you bring that factor, and that's where I always do in our workshops, is behavior. Maybe this is something, Mitch, we can do next time, like do a webinar on the behavior and communication styles. When you recognize the way your people communicate, there is, for example, the talkers, they want to be heard, the supporters, they want to be heard. You want to listen to them. So in short answer, I'm going to say, number one, ask questions and listen. Even sometimes we're so afraid of asking questions. What can I do to help you? What can I do to help you do your job better, for example, at work, right? The questions that you ask them, and the feeling questions, is something that, for example, doers and controllers don't like to go into the feelings areas, right? They want to, like, bullet points. Give me data. Give me a bullet point. How do I get to the results? I'm talking about currently about the client, customers, internal and external. But at the same time, it works with our kids. If I know my child's personality and communication style, I adapt my style to theirs, right? I know with one of my daughters, I gotta give her like do the bullet point. The other one, I need to be patient and I need to listen to. So first thing, Libby, I would recommend is to be able to have the awareness and recognize when are they more receptive? How do they respond to my questions? Do I ask more questions? Controllers, they love questions, right? And controller is not in the term that I'm a controller, more contemplating type of personality in the communication style. So number one, I want you to just kind of through your experiences with each individual that you have in mind, you want to look into how do I communicate them and how do I add value? Second one is ask questions, open that communication and just heartfelt say, I want to be there for you better. Is there something I can do for you? Like you said it so well, we serve them, not they serve us, right? So even that simple question, you put people in shock. Really? You want to serve me? Right? Like having that authenticity is what you already have, Libby. You have that desire to build that. So once you're able to recognize what are their trigger points and what makes them smile, what makes them sing, what makes them happy, you're able to start communicating with them at a different level. You're connecting to them at the heart level. We have our mind level, logical level. We have our like who I am level, and our heart level is like, this person, Libby, really wants to know me. After one and the second time and the third time, once you continue that interaction, does that help at all?
Yes, it does. And thank you so much. We're almost out of time.
Sure.
I'm going to say my takeaway from your counsel is a satisfied employee is just that, a satisfied employee. They think with their mind. A loyal employee is driven by their heart and how you treat them. That's my takeaway from today.
I love it.
One of many. But I want to
it.
thank you so much. I think we could make this a half day or a whole day training. There's so much to absorb from this. And you've been so generous with your experience. I thank you.